This is TVC News at 1, reaching you live from our headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria, where we are monitoring events across the globe. Let's begin by congratulating all workers around the world on this year's celebration of Workers' Day. Now, this day is set aside to celebrate the achievements of labor movement in many countries across the world. And here in Nigeria, the day presents an opportunity for workers to table their demands to the government and for the government to honor and recognize the hard work and dedication of the Nigerian worker. The day is also being celebrated by workers from public and private sectors with rallies, speeches, and other activities in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Workers also use the occasion to demand better working conditions, fair wages, and improved benefits amidst the rising inflation in the country. The federal government had last week declared today a public holiday for the May Day celebration. And also the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Chukwuma Okenwa, is calling on the incoming administration to initiate policies that will protect small and medium-scale enterprises, grow the middle class, and prioritize infrastructure development. Mr. Okenwa, in his Workers' Day message, stressed the need for steps to be taken to safeguard the socio-economic rights of Nigerian workers. He saluted the resilience and steadfastness of Nigerian workers, who he said continue to keep the wheels of the country turning despite obvious national challenges. Mr. Okenwa commended workers in both the public and private sectors and called for right tools and incentives for them to further drive Nigeria to its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. Now, for more on the significance of the Workers' Day celebration, let's bring in the Chief Executive Officer, Leeds Network, Chukwuma Okenwa, who joins us live via Zoom from Enugu. Good to have you join us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Now, as we celebrate yet another Workers' Day, let's also remember that the Buhari administration will be winding down in less than 28 days from now. This is the administration that oversaw the increase in minimum wage, even though there were, the controversies around it here and there, whether states were going to implement it or not. But let me ask you how you think the Buhari administration has fared in terms of workers' welfare.
Well, I think just like you mentioned, that was a quite significant step from the Buhari-led administration, and that, of course, inspired some reforms across the states, seeing like several states toeing the path, trying to improve the livelihood of workers and their welfare. Unfortunately, based on the rising rate of inflation, like all of the time, the inflationary rate is quite very discouraging and makes it quite very difficult for the workers to brace up with the realities of Nigeria, because the fact remains that the rate at which the inflation happens compared to the rate at which the salary is increased, it's quite very variant, and that creates like a lot of challenges. But notwithstanding, that was a leadership move, and it's commendable, and it's also like expected of subsequent administrations across Nigeria to keep finding better ways to enhance the condition of workers in Nigeria.
There's just this popular saying in Nigeria, I think it's one of the most popular sayings today, that everything has changed in the country except for the workers' salary. We see an increase every day. The only thing that doesn't increase is the salary of workers. But recently there was an announcement by the federal government of, I think, about 40% increase in workers' salary, even though the civil servants themselves have said that should be disregarded. Why? We do not know. But I want to ask you what you think would be an adequate increment, or what can be done in terms of workers' welfare, and not just salary, but just generally welfare.
Yeah, I think like endlessly, salary will be the first step, increasing what people take home, because like as is often retorted in civil service, when your take home do not take you home, because as it stands with the current reality, it does appear that it's quite very challenging to meet up with the minimum wage. But we understand the precarious economic situation in Nigeria, because we have come to a point in the nation where we can even borrow to pay salaries, where we can even afford the basic things that we need as a people. And when you look at, like, for instance, the amount of money like we invest, to subsidize the petrol that we use in our own country, it becomes very challenging. So I think all of those ways that Nigeria spend money, that it's not economic in nature, such as like in the subsidy. But of course, I will always recommend, if we are able to refine our own oil, there won't be any need paying subsidy to anyone because we are blessed to have the oil. So I expect the incoming administration to reject the refineries. Let's save those monies on subsidies and rather like reinvest it, even be able to like, sell refined oil to others. So if we're able to earn much as a nation, then of course our workers can earn much. But at the moment, as a nation, we are not earning so much. Our GDP is still very, very far, ridiculously low when you compare that with the population in Nigeria. When you actually want to check the GDP per capita, which has to do with income per head, you find that there is no way the federal government can even do more. That even with, as it is at the moment, the government cannot just even contain that responsibility without borrowing. So a lot needs to be done in terms of our income revenue generation.
But let me ask you, because you mentioned fuel subsidy.
Very, very important.
Because you mentioned fuel subsidy, we know that the current administration has now deferred the removal of fuel subsidy. That probably will now fall on the table of the incoming administration of the president-elect. And there is subsidy does cover till June. But this administration, the incoming administration, the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, did campaign saying that they are going to remove fuel subsidy. A lot of people agree with them, saying it is time. But we also know that that's going to have a lot of impact on workers, especially those who depend on the minimum wage of 30,000 naira to just to live for 30 days. What do you think they should begin to put in place? What should be the exit plan for fuel subsidy removal, and then some sort of palliative for workers?
I mean, in all honesty, I think yes, even if the incoming administration considers that as like a low-hanging fruit, what we consider to be like that should be the long-term plan would be to get all our refineries working. With that, we even going to, like, as a nation, curb the incidences of all the frauds that is, associated with the subsidy regime, because the fact remains, like we've seen as disclosed, we're like about 40% of those monies and of those, fuel that is imported is unaccounted for. So sometimes, like, you have a situation where NNPC is subsidizing non-existent supplies, right? So in this policy of like fixing the refineries, Nigeria is going to contain three major problems. First, you are going to be able to like satisfy internal market. There will also be need like the hardship coming on Nigerians, because when sometimes we want to consider the amount that fuel is sold compared to other countries, we also need to look at the conditions, the variables in those nations. Sometimes, like some of those nations that are often cited at instance, where you look at the minimum wage, in some cases it could be 4 times, 5 times, and even in some cases 10 times that of Nigeria. So, but when you don't fix like some of these things, and I think these things are complex and all interrelated. So when you want to talk about like frame an economic policy that should be able to like transform the economy, it should be all encompassing. So the long-term plan for the Tinubu administration would be fix the refineries. That will curb the corruption in the oil sector. That we ensure that we are able to like supply, and we are going to earn. And I think a recent analysis that was done, we could all look that up like about how much Nigeria lose by just sending like hundreds of dollars just by selling one barrel of crude oil in the crude form, right? So we are losing a lot.
Absolutely, and I think you've said the very important things. There's a lot to watch out for when it comes to human capital development and the agenda of the incoming administration. Thank you so much for talking to us as always. Always a pleasure. Chief Executive Officer, Leeds Network, Chukwuma Okenwa.
Yeah, thank you.